Think back to a time you heard a piece of music and a particular chord just resonated with you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was beautiful, maybe unsettling, but it grabbed your attention.
Yeah,
It almost makes you wonder if the way these sounds fit together isn't just taste, but maybe something more fundamental, maybe universal.
that's a fantastic way to put it. And in this deep dive, we're definitely not just scratching the surface of, like, pleasant sounds.
Right.
We're going to explore the very architecture of harmony. We'll unpack what chords are, how they relate, the roles they play.
Their function in music.
Exactly. And even touch on some fascinating ideas about harmony beyond, well, beyond music as we usually think of it.
Totally. We've got this chapter here that really lays the groundwork, starting with the absolute basics, and then it ventures into some pretty wild territory, doesn't it? Cosmic connections, cultural differences.
It really does. And our goal here is to give you a solid grasp of these core harmonic principles, the kind that lead to those aha moments,
Yeah.
but without getting bogged down in super technical jargon.
Right. We want to spark maybe a new way of hearing and appreciating the music all around you.
That's the idea. Surprising insights, hopefully.
Okay, so let's get right into it. What exactly is harmony in musical terms?
Well, simply put, harmony is what happens when you have two or more different notes sounding at the same time.
Simultaneously.
Right, simultaneously. And they create this kind of unified sonic impression. It's the vertical aspect of music.
Vertical, as opposed to melody being horizontal.
Exactly. Melody unfolds over time, horizontally. Harmony is that stack of notes happening at once.
Yeah.
And the fundamental building block of that is the chord.
A chord, just a stack of notes.
Basically, yeah, a vertical stacking of pitches.
And our source mentions that in, well, a lot of Western music anyway, these chords are often built by stacking thirds. What does that actually mean for the listener? What does it sound like?
Okay, think of a basic scale do re mi, right?
Yeah.
A third means skipping one note in that scale. So start on do, skip year, you land on mi. That's a third.
Got it. Skip one note.
Exactly. So tertian harmony, that's the term, is about building chords by layering these skip one note intervals.
Okay.
Take a C major chord. You start on C, skip D to get to E,
That's your first third.
right? A major third in this case.
Mm-hmm.
Then from E, you skip F to get G.
Another third.
Yeah, a minor third this time above the E, so C, E, G. That specific sound built from those stacked thirds has that characteristic bright, stable quality.
And it's important to remember, like you said, this is very common in Western music, but maybe not everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. It's the prevailing system in the West, but definitely not the only way music organizes simultaneous sounds globally.
Okay, so this CEG, that's a triad, right?
Mm.
3 notes. The source really emphasizes these are fundamental.
Absolutely fundamental. The triad, you've got the root note, a third above it, and then a fifth above the root. It's really the cornerstone of Western harmony.
Cornerstone, yeah.
And these three-note structures, they're incredibly versatile. They can produce a surprisingly wide range of sounds, from really consonant and resolved.
To quite tense and dissonant.
Exactly.
And we've got these different flavors you mentioned, major, minor, augmented, and diminished. What gives each one its specific character?
It all comes down to the precise size of those intervals, those thirds within the triad.
The distance between...
Exactly. So a major triad, like our CEG example, it has a major third on the bottom, C to E, and then a minor third stacked on top, E to G.
And that major third at the bottom.
That's what gives it that bright, open, generally cheerful feeling, that sense of stability.
Okay, makes sense. And minor triads, then?
Minor triads like C, E, flat, G, they flip the order of the thirds slightly.
Ah.
Get a minor third first, C to E flat, and then a major third on top, E flat to G.
So just switching those internal thirds.
Right. And that initial minor third creates a noticeably darker, maybe more somber, introspective mood compared to the major.
Interesting. The root and fifth are the same distance apart as major.
Yes. The perfect fifth from root to top note is the same in both major and minor triads. It's that middle note, the third, that makes the big emotional difference.
Now, augmented and diminished, they sound like they add some edge, instability.
They definitely do. An augmented triad, say, C, E, G sharp, stacks two major thirds. C to E is major, E to G sharp is also major.
Pushes that top note higher.
Exactly. It stretches it out, creating this really tense, unstable sound. It almost feels like it's yearning for release, like it has to go somewhere else.
Okay. And diminished.
Diminished triads like C, E flat, G flat, stack two minor thirds, C to E flat, then E flat to G flat.
So it shrinks the chord overall.
Yeah, it does. It creates a very dissonant, almost weak feeling. a real sense of instability that strongly implies I need to resolve.
So the source points out that these different qualities, major, minor, augmented, diminished, they each bring a unique sonic color, right, and a specific function later on.
Precisely. Each has its own character and job to do within a piece of music.
So triads are the foundation, solid, but we can build on them, adding complexity with seventh chords. What does adding that fourth note, the seventh, actually do?
Adding a seventh interval above the root of a triad, making it a seventh chord, introduces more complexity, more color,
More flavor.
and definitely more flavor. That fourth note creates new relationships with the others in the chord.
Yeah.
And yeah, it often increases the level of dissonance, opening up more sophisticated harmonic possibilities.
Okay, and there are different types here too, like major seventh, minor seventh, dominant seventh. What are the key differences we'd hear?
Okay, so a major seventh chord, like C, E, G, B, that's a major triad plus a major seventh interval on top.
C major plus B.
Right, it has this rich, lush, almost shimmery quality. Very smooth sometimes.
Nice. Minor seven.
Minor seventh, say C flat, G, B flat. That combines a minor triad with a minor seventh interval. The sound is often described as kind of mellow, maybe slightly melancholic.
Yeah.
Very common sound.
Right.
Now, the dominant seventh, this one seems special. You hear about it a lot. It is special. It has a very important role. The dominant seventh chord, C, E, G, B flat, is a major triad underneath, but with a minor seventh on top.
Ah, major triad, minor seventh. Interesting mix.
It is, and it's incredibly important in tonal music because that specific combination of intervals creates a very strong pull towards the tonic chord, toward tone bass.
Why is that? What creates the pull?
Well, within that dominant seventh chord, between the third E and the seventh to B flat, you get this really unstable interval called a tritone,
The tritone. Right?
and that interval inherently wants to resolve. It sounds unfinished, so it drives the harmony forward, pushing strongly back towards the tonic.
Gotcha. And the source mentions other types too, minor, major, half diminished. Just hints at more complexity.
Yeah, it briefly touches on them like minor major seventh, half diminished seventh, fully diminished seventh, just suggesting there are even more subtle shades of harmonic color out there. The half diminished, for instance, often has this particularly poignant, unresolved quality. Lots to explore.
And then it even mentions ninth, 11th, 13th chords. That sounds like things can get really dense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in genres like jazz, you'll find these upper extensions basically stacking even more thirds on top of a seventh chord.
Wow.
Yeah, ninth, 11th, 13th.
Yeah.
They create these incredibly rich, complex textures, adding layers of harmonic sophistication and nuance.
It's like adding more and more shades of color to an already vibrant palette.
That's a great way to think about it.
Okay, so we have all these different chords, simple and complex. Now, how do they actually move from one to the next in a way that sounds smooth, logical? That's where voice leading comes in.
Exactly. Voice leading is basically the art, or maybe the craft, of how the individual notes within one chord progress to the notes in the next chord.
The individual line.
Yeah, thinking horizontally again for a moment, but for each note in the chord, it's about creating a sense of connection and coherence between these harmonic blocks.
So it doesn't sound jumpy or awkward?
Right. Good voice leading makes the music flow naturally. It avoids awkward
You'll find these outbreaks.
clashes between the lines.
And are there guiding principles for doing this well, like rules of thumb?
There are several key ideas, yeah. One is the principle of smallest movement.
Move as little as possible.
Generally, yes. Individual notes should ideally move by the smallest possible interval, like a step or a half step, to the next chord tone. And if the note is common to both chords,
Keep it the same.
ideally, yeah, you retain the common tone in the same voice or part. This creates a really smooth connection.
Okay. What else?
Another guideline, historically very important, is to generally avoid parallel perfect fifths and octaves.
Ah, I've heard of that. Why is that avoided?
Well, traditionally in polyphonic writing, it was felt that moving two voices in parallel fifths or octaves weakened their independence. They sort of merged into one sound.
Interesting. Okay. And resolving dissonance.
Crucial. Any dissonant intervals that arise, like that tritone we talked about, or sevenths, should resolve to consonant intervals in a predictable and satisfying way.
So the tension gets released.
Exactly. Creating that sense of release is fundamental to how harmony works emotionally.
So good voice leading, it's what gives a chord progression that feeling that it just belongs, that sense of inevitability almost.
Perfectly. It creates that seamless flow. It lets you, the listener, follow the harmonic journey without being distracted by abrupt or jarring transitions. And ultimately, that enhances the emotional impact.
Makes sense. Now let's zoom out a bit and talk about harmonic function. The source introduces this idea that chords aren't just sounds, they have specific roles within a key. This sounds like it gives harmony a real sense of direction, purpose.
Absolutely. This is a huge concept in tonal music. Chords aren't just random collections of notes. They have specific functions, specific jobs, and relationships relative to the central key.
A hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly, a hierarchy. And that creates a sense of where the music is going. That's harmonic function.
And the big players here are tonic, dominant, and subdominant, right? The I, V, and IV chords.
Those are the absolute core. The tonic chord, built on the first note of the scale. The I chord is the most stable. It's home base.
Point of rest.
The point of rest, resolution, where everything feels settled. Then you have the dominant chord, built on the fifth degree, the V chord.
That's the one with the strong pull we mentioned.
That's the one. It's highly active, creates a strong sense of tension, and that almost magnetic pull back to the tonic. And crucially, it contains the leading tone.
The note just below the tonic.
Right, that note just a half step below the tonic, which really intensifies that pull home.
Okay. And the subdominant, the IV chord.
The subdominant, built on the fourth degree, it often precedes the dominant. It provides a moment of stability, but it's a different kind of stability than the tonic. It often creates a feeling of maybe anticipation or yearning before moving to the dominant.
So it leads towards the tension chord.
Often, yes. It provides a contrast and leads toward that VI resolution sequence.
So these three, tonic, dominant, subdominant, are kind of the fundamental harmonic framework for a vast amount of Western music.
You could say that. They establish the key and provide the basic engine of harmonic movement, departure and return.
But there are other functions, too, the source mentions.
Oh, definitely. You have chords built on the other scale degrees, too. The median, 3. The submedian, 6. The leading tone chord. They all contribute their own unique flavors and complexities to the harmonic landscape.
Adding more color and variety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And understanding all these functions, the main ones and the secondary ones, is really key to analyzing how tonal music works and also to creating it yourself. It governs why certain chord progressions feel so natural, so satisfying, and guides that whole emotional experience for the listener.
This is really clicking into place now. It gives structure to what you hear. Now, the source takes this fascinating turn with the warm trial section, asking some really broad, almost philosophical questions. Let's start with this idea of cosmic harmony. Could there be harmonic relationships, like beyond music, between planets and stars?
Yeah, here's where we really start to stretch our thinking, right? The source invites us to ponder if the patterns we see in the cosmos,
Orbits, gravity.
exactly, orbits of planets, the gravitational dances of galaxies, even things like the frequencies of light or other radiation. Could these exhibit relationships that are somehow analogous to musical harmony?
Like resonance.
Precisely. It brings up the idea of resonant systems vibrating in sympathy with each other. Could celestial bodies be interacting in ways that reflect these kinds of harmonious principles? Even if it's not sound as we perceive it.
It reminds me of that old idea, the music of the spheres.
Absolutely. It's tapping into that ancient line of thought. Are the mathematical ratios we find pleasing in music echoed in the large-scale structure of the universe?
It's a pretty mind-bending thought. Then the source dives into tuning systems, how the way we tune instruments affects how we hear harmony, and how that might differ across cultures, or even for, hypothetical aliens.
Right. This really challenges our assumptions about what sounds right or in tune. Our standard Western tuning, equal temperament, it's just one way to divide the octave.
We kind of take it for granted.
We do. But other systems exist, and have existed just...
This is really clicking.
Various microtonal systems, and they create different sizes of intervals, which, in turn, changes the actual sound and feel of chords.
So what sounds consonant or dissonant could be learned?
Cultural? Largely, yes. The source asks us to imagine how these different tuning systems could lead to vastly different harmonic languages, different aesthetic preferences. What one culture finds harmonious, another might find jarring. Imagine music based on entirely different mathematical divisions. How would that even sound to us?
Wow. It really puts our own musical language in perspective. And that leads naturally into the question of harmony and emotion. How does harmonic function actually create feelings?
Well, what's really insightful here is how chord progressions, guided by those functional relationships, tonic, dominant, etc., create patterns of tension and release.
Like a story arc.
Kind of, yeah. It mirrors our emotional experiences in a way. Moving from stable tonic to tense dominant and that satisfying resolution back home, that creates powerful feelings. Closure, anticipation, longing.
And the chord qualities matter too. Major for happy, minor for sad.
Generally, yeah, those are strong associations. Major often feels bright, happy, minor darker, sadder. Dissonant chords create unease or tension. The source really encourages us to listen closely across all genres and notice how composers deliberately use these harmonic tools to shape the emotional journey, to tell stories.
It makes you realize how much of our gut reaction to music is tied to these underlying harmonic structures, even if we don't consciously analyze them.
Absolutely. It's deeply ingrained.
Then the source tackles consonance and dissonance across cultures. Is what sounds good or bad to us universal, or is that culturally specific too?
This is a really crucial point. While there might be some basic acoustic principles related to simple frequency ratios that influence perception,
Like octaves and fifths maybe sounding smoother?
perhaps, but the way consonance and dissonance are understood, defined, and used varies dramatically across cultures and throughout history.
So not everyone values harmony the same way.
Not at all. Many non-Western musical traditions, for instance, place much more emphasis on incredibly intricate melodies or complex rhythmic patterns rather than the kind of vertical chordal harmony we focus on in the West. The source really pushes us to look beyond our own framework.
Explore the diversity of how people organize sound.
Exactly.
Finally, the source gets quite philosophical about harmony itself, the idea of agreement, order. Could it reflect something fundamental about the universe?
This is maybe the deepest question it raises. If harmony in music represents this pleasing agreement between sounds, this sense of order, could that be a reflection of a deeper order in the cosmos itself?
Is the universe inherently harmonious, or is harmony just a concept we invented?
Right. It prompts us to think about that interplay between order and chaos, unity and diversity. How does the concept of harmony resonate in different philosophical traditions, spiritual ideas? Is this idea of things fitting together well, does that extend far beyond music?
Wow, we have covered a lot of ground.
We really have.
Okay, so just to quickly recap for everyone listening, we've explored what harmony is, that vertical stacking of notes.
Right, and how tertian harmony builds chords in thirds, the common Western approach.
We looked at the different triad types, major, minor, augmented, diminished, and their distinct characters.
And then added complexity with seventh chords, ninths, elevenths, understanding how they add color and dissonance.
Then the crucial role of voice leading, making those chord changes smooth and logical.
Can't forget that. And the big picture of harmonic function, tonic, dominant, subdominant, giving music its direction and emotional arc.
And then we really broadened out, didn't we? Pondering cosmic harmony, cultural differences in tuning and perception,
The power of harmony to evoke emotion, and whether consonance is universal.
and finishing with those big philosophical questions about harmony as a fundamental principle.
Exactly. We've seen harmony as so much more than just pleasant sounds. It's a structured system, it has its own logic, and maybe it reflects something deeper about the world.
So, here's a final thought for you to take away. Is harmony, in all its forms, musical, maybe even cosmic, is it purely a human invention, a way we've learned to organize sound and thought?
More. Could it be a glimpse into a more fundamental universal principle, a kind of resonance that exists whether we hear it or not?
Woven into the fabric of reality itself, perhaps? Something to ponder the next time you hear a chord that really, truly strikes you.
Indeed. Maybe listening with this new awareness, you'll start hearing harmonies in places you never expected, both in the music and maybe, just maybe, in the world beyond.